Lovely. Okay. Welcome. Thank you, everyone, for sticking it out. I know it's been a long day, and I'm sure that a lot of you are eager to get home. But we appreciate the time, and I'm looking forward to the discussion we're going to have with some awesome people sitting here next to me. So, future fit data. What is it? We're going to have a few discussions about what data is, what future fit data is, and then very importantly, we're going to touch on how you can use it in your brokerage, how you can use it to give advice to your clients and have informed advice. So our objective today is to have this discussion, and I'm looking forward to hearing from all the amazing speakers we have on the stage today. I'd like to start off our discussion asking actually Seamus on the far left of me. Seamus, we all know and love. I'm sure most of you know Seamus as the CEO of Lockton. He's also the past president of the FIA and a director, I believe. So he's a familiar face to all of us, and we're very lucky to have him on stage with us. So Seamus, my question to you is, how big of a role does data actually play in your FSP?
Okay, I'm a broker by trade, and I've been in the game for quite a long time. So in that entire process, I've never yet come across part of my business that doesn't require data of some description. Now, the theme that I've heard today in the conference is everybody's talking about digitization and all of that sort of stuff. Lovely, lovely words. And by the way, I don't believe anything I hear about the cloud. I still cut a CD once a month. It's inviolate. Somebody takes it home. And if something hits the fan, I know that is accurate. Anyway, so we're in a business that requires data. Digitization is merely the use of data and the processing of data and understanding the data and getting it into a manageable, understandable form. So when I produce a claims history for a client in order to justify premiums or premium changes or whatever, I use data. I happen to produce it from the systems, but nevertheless, I use data. When I present results of a binder agreement with an insurance company for discussions, I use data. So data is absolutely fundamental to the business that we're in. Okay, so that's the one aspect and the one use of data that's important. The second aspect, which is very, very underutilized, is the use of data to tell our clients about the quality of the solvency of the insurer and what the insurer financials actually look like. We all know about S&P, we know about Fitch, we know about AM Best, we know about GCR, or GCR, type criteria. How many brokers actually talk to their clients about the solvency of the insurer who is making a promise to pay at some date in the future? And the best analogy I can use, because it may impact on some people in the room, is Constantia. How many brokers have got clients who've got vehicles sitting at repairers where the repairers have no guarantee of payment and therefore they're holding onto the vehicles until somebody pays? I suspect it's quite a few. And how many of you who in fact ended up in that situation had a discussion with your client about the quality of the solvency of that particular insurer? Yeah. I would argue very few, if any, and certainly in my experience, not in the personal line space. Perhaps in the corporate space, but certainly not in the personal line space. So Bernard, that's my position related to data.
Perfect. I mean, it's clear that you use data in every sector of your business, and it's interesting for me that it's not just about claims history or the advice you give to your client. It's also about the due diligence, and I'm starting to wonder how many people or brokers or businesses actually have access to that kind of data. And as we've had discussions previously, you know that data is not easily you can't get it very easily, or easily available, readily available, or if it is, the price of it is usually, much more than any broker or FSP could manage within their business. So, if you think about the data that you use, would you say that you have too much data and you're unable to utilize that amount of data, or do you think that you don't have enough data and you'd actually like to import more into your business, make it more user-friendly? How much usable data do you gather and use?
Data that we have in our business related to our clients is obviously available. We put it and we package it and we graph it and we do whatever we need to do with it. The big difficulty we've had in the past is finding reputable data about our carriers, the insurance companies that we use, and encourage our clients or persuade our clients to accept. We try and dissuade where the price is not necessary, or the premium being charged is not necessarily reflective of the risk. We try and change. But if a responsible insurer with a decent S&P or AM Best or Fitch or whatever it is grading, GCR grading, is prepared to put up terms, we are very comfortable putting those terms up to our clients.
Yeah.
But if the rating of the carrier is not quality and they are discounting the price, I would argue very strongly against using that particular insurer, because who knows whether they'll be around in the next year or so.
Yeah, very good point. And I like the practical example you also gave there. When you have a client that's waiting for their car to be released, as an example, what do you tell them?
Yeah.
When it's out of your hands and you didn't have the data to do the due diligence, or just you didn't know you need to do it, what do you tell that client? You're sitting with a red face, to say the least. So I'm very happy to hear in your business that you are actually seeking that data and working towards it. For me, the query is, or the question is, I wonder how many people actually start using that data now. We've been hearing about it the whole day. I mean, today for me was about white shoes. We all got the WhatsApp to wear the white shoes. We all heard about tech and data, and I know consumer centricity is obviously top of mind. So those three things, bar the shoes, I think you can go without the white shoes, are top of mind for everyone in this room, I believe, and for all the presenters as well. So it's good to see that your mind is working and leaning towards getting that data. I think the challenge in the industry might be actually getting it into your business practically, especially for a one-man band or someone that doesn't even know what kind of data to look for, how to do a comparison. We're not actuaries in here. How do you interpret credit ratings? There's a lot that needs to happen before you can actually make an informed decision, yep. And I think that's where the gap for me is. But we'll touch on that a little bit later. Thank you, Seamus. That was actually very insightful.
Sure.
And good on you for getting that data and actually getting it into your business. I hope a lot of brokers or financial advisors will follow your lead on that. Nina, it's great to have you with us. Thank you for flying up from Cape Town. I know Nina loves the heat. She loves it. And I think you also said even yesterday was too hot for you.
It was a bit hot for me, I will admit.
So I'm very happy we all made it. I'm actually wearing a jacket just for your benefit. I hope it helps, but it's great to see you, and thank you for being here, Nina. I saw a banner, and I saw it previously as well. It says, data is the new oil. Data is currency. And I actually like that. Data is the new oil. And I do think it's true. We've been hearing about data the whole day, tech, etc. My question to you is, and we talked about a little bit with Seamus, about that gap from being a financial advisor, being an entrepreneur, being an owner of a brokerage or a key individual. How do you bring all that data? How do you bridge the gap between what's available and how you actually use it in your business? How difficult is it to achieve? Is it achievable? What are the things we can look out for in a practical way if you're in that position?
Thanks, Bernard. Yes, I think before I start, thank you to Seamus for his great illustration of what happens in his business. LinkTank has been operating in financial services for close to 9 years now. And in all that time, there have been about 3 or 4 things that come up as constant challenges that we see within FSPs. And one of those challenges, or 2 of them actually, are integration and data. So not only the ability to utilize the data you've got sitting in your own systems within your business, but to use external sources of data that you can bring in to enrich the client data you're sitting with, to give you a far better view of who your client is, what your revenue looks like, where the assets are lying, et cetera, et cetera. Many businesses struggle to put all of that together. And that gap for 9 years has stayed the same. We're seeing no change. And I think the important thing is that the ability to be able to go in and consult with advisors and have a look at what they're using in their business has given us great insights into how that we can help them potentially solve those problems. And I'm not saying the solution is there immediately, but for instance, we've now partnered with the data company to look at bringing a solution to market that will enable advisors to integrate their systems and have a consolidated data source. So that doesn't really exist in the industry. If you're using only one system, then you're ahead of the game because you have data in there, and that data is either good or bad, but it's one piece of the data that you're looking at in your business. But if, like most practices, you're using 3 or 4 different systems, you've got a myriad amount of data sitting there, and nothing actually matches the other. You'll find your same client spelt in different ways throughout your business. So I think that's one of the major problems we're seeing in the industry, and the solution is not entirely there. So I can't help you by saying, here's the magic, here's the answer. We're working on it, and we're definitely going to find a solution for that, we believe. In terms of not only using your internal data, even more difficult is the ability to go out and collect data outside in the marketplace and bring it in to actually enrich that data. So you're not looking at just your client, Mr. Brown. He's got that asset, he lives there, and that's his cell phone number. But to start looking at, on an individual basis as well as an insurer basis, as Seamus mentioned, to look at the credit rating of the client, to actually start assessing the risk of the client to the business, as was mentioned previously. So there are many instances of external sources of data that we could bring in. And I think when the FIA and Linktank met about 3 years ago with the intention, we helped them to implement the new system. They run their CRM within the business. And part of their vision at the time was to say they want to bring value-added services to the brokers and how to do that. And data is the source of being able to bring some answers to the businesses that they cannot access at the moment. For anybody who wants to go out there and start looking at financial information about the insurers, you're going to have to Google, and believe me, you're going to be Googling a long time to try and draw up a simple comparison between 3 or 4 different insurers. I mean, even just looking at the wording of that data can be different. So there's no one consolidated view. And I think that's where the history of the market intelligence tool came from. We decided there's this vision, there are these sources of data that are available for short-term insurers. Can we bring it together and start delivering something that will give value to the members of the FIA? So I think that's where the tool started about 3 years ago as a dream, and we're sitting here today and we're happy to say this is something we're going to show you as one of the tools to help you give advice, better advice in your business, or substantiated advice, I think would be a better word, supported by data in the background. And that's just one use. There are many other uses, and the tool's going to incorporate a lot more going forward. So I think that will give you a good instance of what people are battling with in the industry, it's data they're battling with, and what is the FIA looking to bring to members, adding value by bringing data into an accessible format.
Lovely. It's interesting for me, and I think the thing that caught my attention was 9 years down the line, we've been having the conversation about tech and data and CRMs, and we're way past that already. Internet of Things, I've heard every single acronym I think possible. You mentioned 9 years down the line, and there's still no one single plug-and-play solution, and I think that makes sense. Not every business is the same. Not every client is the same. We're catering for different types of clients. We're trying to grow the business, different kinds of risks we're giving advice on. It would make sense that all systems cannot be just one size fits all. I think the positive I'm taking from this is that you mentioned the journey we've been on, regarding the MIT, the market intelligence tool. We've actually found a way to incorporate multiple data sources into a single platform. And I'm not gonna say too much. We've got the lovely Jermaine to take us through some of that. But there is a positive in here for me. Yes, 9 years down the line, we've had a lot of conversations. I reiterate, today we've been talking about data, white shoes, and consumer centricity, right? So the data is actually coming to a point where we can use it in the business, and I see the light at the end of the tunnel. Now, I know 3 years also is a long journey, but it's been very interesting, and I must say we've had a few good meetings with a lot of data providers. But it's good to hear that we're finding ways to bring that to the members. So I appreciate your input on that.
Thanks.
I wanted to quickly just head over to Jermaine with the cool glasses. We all love it. It looks awesome. Jermaine, I think it's an exciting time in our industry, right? Nina was just talking about how we bring it all together. Seamus his business is operating on data. We've been hearing about data, and I'm sure that even in the simplest sense, an Excel sheet, I wouldn't recommend this, not recommending or advice, but some people run their client base off an Excel sheet. That is still data, right? So I think it's an exciting time to come from where we've been and where we're going. And it's been a great journey, I'm not going to lie. My request to you is to show us what we've been working on, what the vision was, talk about a little bit how advisors can use data in their business, not just to give advice, but also the due diligence. Seamus did mention it. So I'm going to hand you this very fancy clicker, and I'm going to hand over to Jermaine to take us through a little bit of the MIT.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Bernard, and thank you very much for your input, because everything relates back to many of the conversations I've been having with people that visited the stand today. Very much focused around getting value out of your data, getting access to your data, being able to use your data. And over the past few years, we've been very proud and happy to work with the FIA in the tech space to offer to produce the market intelligence tool. So with the market intelligence tool, the aim there was really, as Seamus mentioned, was to address the need to provide financial advisors and other stakeholders with easily accessible data, trusted data from trustworthy sources that has been validated, but also sourcing data. You know, even through this project, we found you do need some knowledge and you need the right relationships to actually find the data. So we've aimed to make that easily accessible and in a consolidated space for members. So I'm going to take you through a couple of screenshots about the tool, talk you through how we envisage the tool to be used in the market. Yes, I think it will add huge value to financial advisors and their practices, as Seamus mentioned, but also to other stakeholders in the market as well. So what we've done in the tool is we've collaborated with a couple of organizations to get you trustworthy data. So financial data coming from KPMG, where they do thorough comparisons and analysis to make sure that data is validated and comparable. The credit rating data, which can really provide you with insights into the stability and financial position of an insurance company, as well as ombud data, and for you to consider in your assessment when placing business there too, as an example. So we start off with the dashboard to provide you with an overview of the market, some of the top performers in the market, for those kind of key financial indicators, for items of interest like claims incurred, premiums written, and that can give you a good idea of who the large players in the markets are. So that really gives you a market overview. But what we have also aimed to do, so I'm just going to skip that, is provide you with a tool that can help you also dig down further into the data and really deep dive into that. So on the screen is another example, and as Seamus mentioned, that GCR rating is there as an example. So especially for large policies as an example, you know, but now even small, like you mentioned, Seamus, you want to know the financial stability, solvency of that organization. And we have had thorough conversations with GCR, and we understand the process that they go through. But that data is not easily accessible to anyone. There's a cost involved, and there's a lot of work that goes into that. And that was one of the asks. was to bring this and make this accessible. So with this, you can actually, when you're doing your due diligence, for example, or deciding, do you want to place your business with this insurer, or even give advice to customers, you can deep dive into these financial results of an insurance company. If I go to the next screen, here you can also dive into the details of their financial performance and look at it over a few years to see, how have they been performing. There are kind of key measures there that might be of interest. The next one is, and I think this is very important, when you're doing a due diligence, when you actually have to validate your decisions in where you're placing business, is to look at things and compare insurers to others. Obviously, there's multiple things you need to consider when you're doing that, but this functionality does give you that ability. I have done it where, this can be quite challenging when you're pulling data from multiple PDFs, trying to get it into an Excel. I've done that a few times. And then bringing in additional data sources as well. It's a challenge. And we have tried to make that easier through a tool. I think one thing to also just note on this is in this tool, because we know a lot of these things are done at a point in time, all the reports and data are exportable. So you can actually have that on record for your purposes and have that as a backup to motivate why you made certain choices or decisions. So those are just a couple of examples there that you can see of how one insurer could be compared to another. We also have the functionality for specific years to deep dive into specific categories that might be of interest to you. So if you want to, like Seamus mentioned, monitor the solvency of insurance companies in the market, you could see some of the top performers there, or the assets that they hold, or the premiums they've written. We provide this type of functionality and dashboard as well. And again, we try and make it interpretable, accessible, and easy to understand. That, like Bernard said, you don't need an actuarial degree. Thanks for the stab. To interpret and understand that data. And then what we've also done, and again from a reputable source, is also make the Ombuds data accessible to you through this platform. So here we are using the publicly available data from their annual reports to also provide you with that information so that you can see if there are any areas of concern or positives to see, how are these claims being handled? Are there positive outcomes for certain insurers or not? But really, I think, we've aimed to make all this data accessible and easily so in someone's practice. And then I think like the last thing or two last things I wanted to mention is just like in a practice, we do allow you to see what activity has happened on your platform. But as I mentioned, I think the big thing here is that the data is reputable, it's been validated, and the organizations we're working with to get that data from, thoroughly check that data and do detailed analysis so that you can rest assured that you can trust the data you're using. And I think I'm quite excited about the roadmap of this project. Nina did mention we focused on short-term insurance to start with, but this will definitely be expanding to long-term insurers, reinsurers, and we also hope to collaborate with additional data providers to perhaps bring additional information about companies, individuals, motor vehicles, and more. So always open to suggestions about what the need is in the room. And how your processes work when you place business, or who you decide to contract with, or who you recommend your customers to, and why. So yeah, thanks Bernard.
It's beautiful to see on screen. Thank you, Jermaine. I can't stop looking at the screen behind us. It looks so beautiful. Thank you so much for that. I hope everyone here is as excited as I am about this. You mentioned moving forward, we would look at having additional information. I think that's very exciting. And the nice thing about this tool, or a tool like this, is you can keep plugging in. Yes, with the professionals. I'm not gonna draft an Excel and push it in there, but it's good to have professional people that know what they're doing to get this, in there and usable. I think for me the question is to Seamus actually, and Seamus, as a CEO, I know the due diligence you want to do on where you place risk. Do you envision your brokers, your financial advisors, your intermediaries being able to print that report, or the basic report, the comprehensive report, or the comparison, and actually using that as part of their record of advice in terms of where they're advising the client to place the risk? Why the premium might be a little bit more expensive, but you can actually prove it with data.
Yeah, well, we would we would certainly use all those sort of tools. We would certainly, in our renewal reports for our corporate clients, use those, and we would probably use it in our personal lines business where we are recommending a change in insurer, i.e. to try and get the buy-in of the customer that is an acceptable carrier for them to move to. There's just one other point that I'd want to make, please. If you have a look at a lot of the Ombud findings that have taken place over the last, say, 10 years, a number of them have been that the broker or the intermediary has done no due diligence on the carrier. And this product is designed to try and assist intermediaries in filling that gap, i.e. there is a diligence process which you've gone through with your customer in order to do it. And while Steve was on stage a little bit earlier talking about professional indemnity, I am of the view that there are very few professional indemnity policies that cover insolvency of the carrier. That is not necessarily a risk which professional indemnity policies cover. So guys, you're on your own if you don't do it. Yeah. You may very well get an Ombud ruling against you if you don't do it, and you certainly, or it's highly unlikely that you would have cover for it in terms of your professional indemnity covers as well. So you're on your own is effectively what it is, and that's part of the reason and the rationale around development of the tool by the FIA for intermediaries.
That's actually a scary thought, Seamus. If you think about you're on your own, the business of insurance is to mitigate risks, and to find yourself in that position, I think it would be very scary to start off with. Sleepless nights, millions probably, we're speculating, but I think the point is made very well. Thank you, Seamus. I see we are running out of time, so it's about time for us to head off and get off the stage. I'd like to just close very, very briefly by saying I find data fun. Now, I know that's a weird thing to say. I think it's very exciting. I look at I think there was about 20 Excel sheets that you shared with me recently, Jermaine. Yeah. Multiple data sources, fields that I can't even understand, and I was so excited to see all of the data. The nice thing about that is all of that is brought together into something that's actually usable, and I think that's something that we're still missing. Everyone has data for the client. A lot of people use data for comparisons, but I don't see brokers really using this kind of data to make sure their business is safe and to not find yourself in a situation where you might have a little bit of no cover, you might have not done the due diligence, it's not part of the record of advice. So I'm very excited about what this thing holds, and I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands, but just think to yourself, what am I doing in terms of where I place risk for my client? What kind of due diligence am I doing in terms of who I do business with? Is it a beer every Friday? Is that enough motivation to place business? And if you ask me, I'm not a financial advisor, so I'll say yes. But I think people that are licensed and are giving financial advice have to think about how they do the due diligence. And I think that's the point that we want to make today. I thank you for your time, Seamus, Nina, Jermaine. Always lovely talking to you. Thank you for joining us for this beautiful panel discussion and a very exciting soft launch of the market intelligence tool. I hope everyone reaches out to us, start using the tool. It's definitely worth your while to at least have a conversation with us. I see the lights ticking. I'm not going to keep you guys any longer. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great afternoon, and thanks for sticking around.
Thank you.